Gifts to the church are incalculable.
Paganism.
Restless, unable to settle down. One night in a dream, he has a vision of the Irish people.
Yeah, now this right here, I'm just going to give commentary to this right here. This is another one of the church fathers in the 4th century or the 5th century AD, St. Patrick. And, you know, for the sake of time, I'm just running forward here because I want to get into something that's a little bit more meatier, if you will. But what we're finding here with St. Patrick, so-called St. Patrick, is that, you know, Patrick was abducted from England, brought over to, you know, Ireland, went back to England, studied under a Catholic bishop, came back to Ireland, and he was able to convert the pagan Irish. And he was able to convert them by showing them that the God that they served, right, because they had a triunion Godhead as well. You know, Patrick was able to say, well, we have a triunion Godhead too, okay? But our triunion Godhead is a God that is merciful, loving, kind, you know, so forth and so on.
That's
Sweet
right.
Jesus, in other words,
That's
okay?
right.
You know, so it's basically the same God. He's just now in a different state of mind, if you will. So what they did, all of Ireland adopted this Christian practice.
Is that where they got the shamrock?
That's where they got the shamrock from.
So they still have
Absolutely.
St. Patrick's Day with the green beer and all that?
Exactly, exactly. And that's something that we need to speak to, Elder, a little bit as we wind down. We only have several minutes here.
Of Europe.
But, you know, St. Patrick was a mover and a shaker in, again, the continued reformation of Christian theology. See, what people don't understand, Elder, is that the purpose for Christian theology was to negate the Hebraic culture, period. It was to negate everything Hebraic.
That's right.
From the changing of the 4th commandment, we know that the Shabbat day, the Sabbath day, is the holiest day for the Hebrews.
That's right.
Along with the 7 appointed holy days, such as Sukkot, Shavuot, you know, Matzah, you know, Shofarim, all of the holy days that we observe. The Christian says all of that was done away with, but cannot show us any place in the scriptures where it was done away with, unless you go to the Gnostic writings, okay, and you look at their discourse and their statements and letters of apologetics and so forth through different emperors that state that these customs had been done away with, but we cannot find anything tangible to put our finger on to support the nullification of the culture that the Most High gave to his people. St. Patrick converted what is now, you know, millions or hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people over in Ireland by contrasting pagan theologies, right? And one pagan theology having more foundation, more ground, more momentum than the other. So hence he brings in the Irish with something that they can relate to, right, while continuing to hold to their pagan customs.
That's what happened.
All right. Well, and let's see if we can get somebody to validate that for us.
So the Hijra, Muhammad converts most of the Bedouin
now we're going to
tribes
talk about Mr. Assalamu Alaikum. This is the Muslims, and we need to tie them in order to get an understanding here.
Classical civilization, not only for Ireland, but for all of Europe. Within 10 years of the Hijra, Muhammad converts most of the Bedouin tribes of Arabia by the sword.
That's another religion spreading by the sword, right?
And although the prophet dies in the year 632, within a mere 20 years after his death, his heirs succeed in gathering together the entire Arab world under the cloak of Islam.
The Antichrist.
Byzantium fails to take note of the Arabian giant rising from the sands of the desert.
Islam is one of the most important events in the history of Christianity, because what the Muslims do is conquer the economically richest areas and geographically richest areas of Christianity. They conquer the centers of Christian learning. Only Constantinople and Rome are left. So it really is a frontal assault on Christianity.
Islamic assault is actually seen as liberation by many of the Christian communities of Arabia. After 2 centuries of persecution by their Orthodox brethren, the Monophysite Christians of Egypt and Syria put up only token resistance when the Arabs arrived at their gates.
Now I want to stop right here, Nick, because you're actually going to see an actual depiction. But this right here is a so-called brother that's here in the back, right? And this right here, the light-complected individual, is one of Islam. Okay, all right. But what the narrator Ozzy is not going to tell us is that the people who are now practicing Christianity, the Coptic, right, Christian church, if you will, were once avid practitioners, right, of the Hebraic culture.
That's right.
Before they were forced to change to the Christian theology.
By the sword.
Bingo, exactly. So, you know, they were forced to adopt Christianity. This is the reason why they would now welcome, right, Islam to come in. Now, let's listen to these things. So here you have the Christian church that spread its theology by the sword, and you have the Islamic church that's spreading its theology by the sword. And what amazes me is when I hear Christian theologians talk so much about Islam, about how violent and how brutal it is, and everyone forgets the Holy Crusades.
That's right.
Everyone forgets that it was the Christians that went over to the coastlands of Africa, northern and west, okay, and took people through the most brutal period of history and slave trade.
And still doing it in a lot of ways where if you want to be fed or educated, you have to convert to Christianity.
Absolutely.
In a lot of those cultures.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. In order to